My son, who is well paid, and you, who has no job and plays around every day, don't match well. From now on, I will live here with my son. So, you get out of here now. It was a rare day when my husband, who usually stays in his room, was out. The intercom rang loudly. When I opened the front door, that was what my mother-in-law said. Huh? In the first place, you should open the front door as soon as the intercom rings. You really are a useless wife who can't do anything. Sorry, I was working and didn't notice. You lied to me like that again. I know that you lie about your job, that you don't do the house chores, that you spend all day long just doing nothing. It's not a lie. It doesn't matter whether you do something or not. My mother-in-law, who doesn't listen to me, smirks and shows me a piece of paper. Do you know what this is? What is it? They are the divorce papers, filled out by my son. He doesn't want you either. Now, sign here and get out of here. My mother-in-law looks down at me triumphantly and laughs. I do as I'm told and sign the divorce papers. My hands trembled as I gripped the pen. My poor mother, so happy with joy. She doesn't know anything about me. My name is Jasmine. I work from home as a freelance writer and editor. Until a few years ago, I worked for a publishing company, and thanks to my experiences from that time, I am still able to earn enough money to live on a steady basis. In addition, when I was working for the publishing company, I worked hard every day, and I had a good amount of savings. Therefore, although I am an unstable freelancer, I am able to live without any major worries. I met my husband Michael when I was working for a publishing company. At the time, I was still a fledgling editor, and Michael was an aspiring writer. I was making a lot of mistakes and things were not going well. But like me, Michael never gave up, even when he couldn't get the result he wanted. And his hard work and dedication to his dream inspired me. I worked hard too, never giving up. So I am the person I am today thanks to Michael. Michael's dedication not only cheered me up, but I found myself attracted to him. A few years after dating Michael, I married him. When I got married, I left the company and became a freelancer. The beginning of our marriage life was going well. I was not yet stable as a freelancer, and Michael was chasing his dream. We encouraged each other and shared half of the house chores and living expenses. After 2 years of marriage, my business began to stabilize. That's when Michael started telling his in-laws that he was a successful writer. In reality, he was not a successful writer at all. Rather, he had been rejected by publishers so many times. Even if he applied for an award, he would only make it to the second round. He probably wanted to reassure his parents, since I was painfully aware of Michael's feelings, that it would worry them to tell them forever that he wanted to be a writer. I said nothing and nodded along with Michael's story at my in-laws' house. In the beginning, all I had to do was nod. By the time his behavior as a successful author was on the board, I couldn't feel at ease at my in-laws' house. Not only did my in-laws believe Michael's story, that he was a successful writer, but they also started calling me a stay-at-home, useless wife. They saw me as a useless wife who was being supported by her husband, a successful writer. To work at home, freelance work style may indeed be difficult to understand and imagine. I don't think it was a way of working that my parents-in-law are familiar with, so I don't blame them. However, my parents-in-law's attitude toward me gradually escalated. Whenever I visited my parents-in-law's house, they would always say, "How could a wife who does neither work nor house chores show up at her husband's house? As I have told you many times, I am a freelancer, so I work from home. And the sharing of house chores is something that Michael and I discussed when we got married. I don't see how you can talk back to me when you don't even have a job. You say you work at home, but you don't have a good job. You don't make much money, and Michael takes care of you and your living expenses. Don't worry, I make a decent living and pay for our living every month. Oh yes, you don't get it. If you don't appreciate Michael a little more and act a little more gracious, I don't know when he'll leave you. If Michael dumps you, you won't be able to make a living. That kind of conversation continued. I almost sighed out loud, but managed to swallow it. I was about to say, I'm the one who earns most of the living expenses, and I'm also the one who does most of the house chores. It's Michael, who doesn't have a job and doesn't do the housework. But I managed to swallow it as well. In the beginning, I only heard various sarcastic comments when Michael was not around. Recently, when I was invited to dinner at my in-laws' house, Michael and I went to my in-laws' house together, and the only meal prepared was for Michael's portion. It has become the norm that there is no seat for me. On top of that, they seem to be talking about me to all our relatives, and even when I attended gatherings with other relatives a few times a year, they only sneak around and talk about me behind my back. I only pity my in-laws' attitude. I was not sad at all, but I was a little frustrated with Michael's attitude of just sitting back and watching and not even trying to stop them. On top of that, my in-laws think Michael is a successful writer, so they keep begging him to buy them things. Michael asked me to buy new furniture or appliances, even if ours are still usable. Michael wanted to make a good impression on his parents, so he bought whatever they asked him to buy. And I found myself spending nearly $2,000 a month on them. Of course, this was all from the money I earned. Michael took money from my account and wallet without my knowledge and gave it to my parents-in-law. I turned blind-eyed when it was a small amount, but when it became too much for me to overlook, I said, "Michael, please don't spend my money without my permission." But Michael just looked at me as if he was annoyed with me. "You work from home and have an easy job, don't you?" "What?" "It's like you're playing around and getting your money with it. You earn money from just playing around, so why not spend a little on my mother? Don't be stingy." "Michael, did you think of my job that way?" "Yes, I think it's an easy job because you get paid by staying at home every day." "I can't believe you thought that about me, Michael." Michael walks into his room, laughing out loud. As I watched his back, I noticed that this was my limit and that I cannot endure more. I will divorce him. I'd always believed that Michael was the one who was on my side, no matter what my in-laws said. So I managed to do my best. But even Michael was making fun of me like this. And I am aware of everything. I know that Michael spends hours a day in his room, but he never writes a single word of his manuscript and spends his days playing computer games. When I first met him, he was more serious about his work than anyone else, and he was eager to write something as interesting as possible. But now I don't see a trace of that. The dedicated Michael I loved is gone. And now all I have is Michael with his in-laws making fun of me. I decided to secretly look for an apartment for a single person. While looking for a new home, I gradually organized my personal belongings and prepared to leave anytime I wanted to. A little while later, I found an apartment that looked good and had already previewed it. One day, my mother-in-law came to our house while Michael was out. She rang the intercom with great enthusiasm, and as soon as the front door was opened, she sat down on a sofa in the living room, as if it were her own. "Jasmine, you get the hell out of this house." "What are you saying out of nowhere?" I've been telling you for a long time that you were unemployed and still do not do any of the house chores. You are nothing more than a useless wife. There's no way that Michael, a successful writer, is compatible with you.
So, as I have said many times, you were mistaken about that.
Besides, my mother-in-law interrupted me and continued talking. If you leave this house, I will live here. That way, I can cook meals for Michael every day, and I don't have to take care of that woman. That woman? My husband's mother, Michael's grandma. She's so picky about the seasoning when I cook for her, and the dust when I clean. I can't live with her anymore. So I decided to stay here with Michael and have the woman go to a nursing home somewhere.
How are you going to pay for a nursing home?
I'll just get Michael to pay for a few things like that out of his own money. He is earning a lot of money, so it will be cheap for him. But that's why you are in my way. Will you get the hell out of here?
With that, my mother-in-law presented me with filled out divorce papers. Why do you have that?
I made him fill out a while ago, telling him to get a divorce from Jasmine as soon as possible. Michael immediately nodded and filled it out.
My mother-in-law is smirking and has a nasty smile on her face. I checked the divorce papers and sure enough, they were written in Michael's handwriting. This was actually a good thing for me. I was ready to move out, but I was still thinking about how we were going to get divorced. I thought Michael would not want to give up the life he has now, and he would not sign the divorce papers easily. I was prepared for a long discussion and a battle with him. So how lucky I was to get the divorce papers filled out so easily. My mother-in-law looked a little surprised when I easily received the divorce papers and filled them out. But she soon regained her normal self-possession and said,
"Now, get the hell out of here. Leave the furniture behind. Everything gets purchased with Michael's money. So, I don't think you can take anything with you."
She laughed out loud. I quickly packed up my belongings and moved into the new apartment. I also filed the divorce papers at the municipal office on my way. Thus, I had a new life on my own without any problems. I was surprised at how comfortable it was to live without anyone interrupting my work and making fun of me. Somehow, I felt that my work was progressing better than usual. It was 3 days after I started living alone. While I was working at home as usual, I received a phone call from Michael. I picked up the phone, and the first thing he said was,
"Please come home," he said in the most pathetic voice I have ever heard.
"What the hell is wrong with you now?"
"I'm sorry, I apologize, so please come back home."
"I'm not coming home. We have already divorced."
"I never agreed to divorce.
That's not valid." "But those divorce papers were definitely in your handwriting."
"That was just a little threat I was trying to make to you. I had no intention of getting a divorce."
"But that doesn't change the fact that you wrote them. Divorce is divorce. You don't need a wife who plays around every day, works on an easy job, and doesn't do any of the house chores, right? You get to live with your family you love so much. You can't complain. What's the problem?"
"I'm sorry, but my family thinks I'm a writer, so they quit their job and moved here, intending to live on my dime. On top of that, they want me to pay for grandma's surgery, and there's no way I have that kind of money."
"I see. That's why you want me to come back."
"Yes, and now that they know I've been lying to them, my mom and dad are really mad at me. They're all clamoring for me to bring you back right now. You now know how hard it is for me. Please come back to me. Let's live together again."
Do you really think I'm going to say, "Yes, I'll come back"? I've told you many times, we're divorced. You have to take care of your problems.
"Don't be like that, Jasmine.
no matter how many times I say no. Michael won't give up and hang on to me. I don't know how many times I told Michael that I was a stranger to him now, that we were divorced, and he got irritated.
All right, I'll divorce you if you insist so much. But you know what? If you divorce me, you should pay for my parents' care and alimony, which you were supposed to take care of when we were married.
What are you talking nonsense?
Because, if you hadn't divorced me, my mom and dad would have ended up in a facility, and we would have had to pay for their care. So you should be the one to pay for it. And since you divorced me on your own, they found out that I lied about being a successful writer. And my mom and dad got mad at me and hurt me emotionally. All of this is because of your selfish divorce.
I can't pay alimony. No, I won't pay that because I don't understand what you mean. In the first place, when we were married, it was you who said I was a jobless, no good wife. I don't know if it was out of your pride or not, but you were the one who lied about me and hurt me. Your parents and our relatives believed your lie, and they accused me. I don't want to say this, but I was much more hurt than you are hurt now. I'm not interested in you, who willingly made fun of me instead of protecting me. If you want money, why don't you just borrow it from a bank or anywhere else? With those words, I hang up the phone without hearing Michael's reply. I set my phone to block his calls and change my phone number. A few months later, I happened to pass by my in-laws' house, which had already been sold and turned into a parking lot without a trace of my in-laws' house. While I was looking at my in-laws' house, a neighbor who happened to be coming back from shopping approached me. She told me that Michael's family had no choice but to move into an old apartment because they were all unemployed and had run out of money. Before they got out of there, they had been fighting every day. They were famous in the neighborhood because it was loud enough to be heard outside. And they were annoyed by the noise until late every day. The neighbors even called the police. She patted me on the shoulder and said, "You had a tough time too," and hurried off. I also turned my back on my former in-laws. Michael started to lie to look cool, and then he couldn't correct his lie. And the gap between the truth and the lie grew bigger and bigger as he continued lying. I never thought it would end like this, but it's a much more interesting turn of events than the novels Michael writes. It is so common for small happening to lead to a terrible end. But I wonder if Michael, who wanted to be a writer, couldn't have imagined it. Fact is stranger than fiction. I feel a little sorry for him, that he ruined himself by lying to his parents for his glory and self-satisfaction. But I am going to learn from him so that I don't end up like him.